this news story about Charlie Kirk, and that Candace Owens has made a big deal about. And Candace, as much as I keep showing you clips where she's like nuts and completely insane and completely a wacko, people, massive numbers of people are following her, and she is incredibly influential, and people pay attention to what she says, and it's like everybody's like, oh, Candace says that, as if she's a legitimate voice. But so anyway, Candace has been on this thing about Charlie Kirk was really killed not by this kid that they arrested, but he was really killed by the Israelis, and he was killed by the Israelis because Charlie was pivoting a Turning Point USA away from Israel. He was becoming more anti-Israel, and that's why the Israelis had him killed, or the Jews in America had him killed, or somebody like that had him killed. Anyway, that's the story Candace is pitching. And the other day, I guess the day before yesterday, she had text messages from Charlie. Because everybody's saying, look, but Charlie was unbelievably pro-Israel, and they brought us this letter he wrote to Netanyahu, and they made a big deal out of how pro-Israel Charlie Kirk really was. And so she has this text message that somebody gave her a text conversation between a number of different people and Charlie about the fact that Charlie had just lost, I guess, a $2 million donation from a Jewish donor who was insisting that Charlie Kirk disinvite Tucker Carlson from the Turning Point USA conference, and insisting that Charlie condemn kind of the anti-Semitism of Tucker Carlson. And basically Charlie Kirk was saying, no, I won't do it, and I'm not going to do it. And he was suggesting that he was going to be less pro-Israel in the future, that he was stepping back, that all this pressure was ridiculous, and so on. Initially, when she came out of this, a lot of people said, oh, fake, this is all made up. But Turning Point USA has actually confirmed that these text messages are actually real, and that Charlie Kirk indeed did say all this. He did lose the contribution from the Jewish donor, and was indeed moving to distance himself somewhat from the kind of pro-Israel perspective, lobby, whatever you want to call them. No, it's a bit of a far reach to go from there to the Mossad killed him with zero evidence. But Candace Owens will take whatever victory she can get, and she will pat herself on the shoulder and show, see, I was right. But here's the interesting thing, I think, about all of this, and that is, this shows, I think, the extent to which Charlie was corrupt by the notion of a big tent, and this is true of the right more broadly. The fact is that, in spite of the fact that Tucker Carlson is nuts, crazy, and conspiratorial, and clearly anti-Semitic, and flirting with Holocaust denial and pro-Nazi sympathies and all of this stuff, and Candace is even beyond that. In spite of all of that, the reality is that the American right, has not, flushed them out, has not rejected them, has not turned their back on them. That they have big enough audiences and enough support within the right, the American right, that leading figures in the American right, including Charlie Kirk and the other people who appeared on stage at the Turning Point USA conference, did not feel embarrassed or did not feel like it was problematic for them to be sanctioning Tucker Carlson. And indeed, many of these people, including many politicians, are happy to go on Tucker Carlson's show and use his platform. I mean, maybe a little bit more reluctant with Candace Owens, but even Candace Owens is not being shunned. They are part of the right. They are part of this movement. And that should tell you what you need to know about the right. And a lot of them will say, yeah, I disagree with Tucker Carlson. Yeah, he's turned anti-Semitic. It's inappropriate. It's not good. But I'm not going to I'm not going to say anything negative about him. I'm not going to go after him, and I'm not going to deplatform him, and I'm not going to not go on his platform, and I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm going to sanction him. And when you sanction somebody who's become a monster like Tucker Carlson, you are responsible for the consequence of that, for the consequence of promoting this kind of ideology and the direction the right has taken as a consequence of that. So the modern right, the MAGA right, but it's I think broader than MAGA, completely embraces the Tucker Carlsons of the world. They embrace the Candace Owens of the world. Anti-Semitism is just part of their agenda. And yeah, okay, some on the right will distance themselves, don't want to be associated too much, but not so much as to deplatform them or reject them. They want the big umbrella. They want the big tent. And from my perspective, when evaluating the right, when evaluating a Turning Point, and part of the evaluation is who do they invite to speak? Who are the people who speak at their conferences? Who are the people who are part of their big tent? And given that Tucker Carlson is part of that tent, one has to evaluate and one should judge, right? I'm big on judging. Judge. I'm very judgmental. You should be very judgmental. It's your life, your values, your future. And the right is really, really, really bad. And I'm glad that I don't have a lot of people on my chat anymore saying, Yaron, we need to be friends with the right. We need to be friendly with these people. We need to associate with them. We need all this stuff. No, we don't. We're different. We don't associate with anti-Semitic, freaks who think demons are scratching them in the middle of the night, or who demons invented nuclear weapons. I think Tucker Carlson believes that. We don't associate with complete nutcases. Have nothing to do with them. I don't want to be in that tent. Talk about big tents. I just noticed a photo on X, on Twitter, of Dave Smith, libertarian Dave Smith, meeting with Nick Fuentes. There's another great meeting of the minds, or the lack of. And this is exactly it, right? This is exactly who you'd expect to be teaming up. The anti-Semitic, anti-thinking, anti-mind wing of, the right, call them the right. And anybody I represent at least, this show, not part of that. Not part of that. We're not part of that, those tents. We're not part of any of those. Oh, I like that. Z Racer calls it meeting of the mindless. That's good. Meeting of the mindless. That's good. So we don't belong to that tent. We don't want to be under that umbrella. I'd rather stay small and principled. Small and independent. Small and not sanction evil. Not sanction evil. Because the reality is, I understand enough of objectivism, enough of reality, enough of life to know that the only party that benefits from associating with evil is evil. The only party that benefits from associating with the mindless are the mindless. The only people who benefit from associating with the soulless are the soulless. We benefit nothing. We only lose. So, yeah, we're small. Yep, we don't have that much influence. But associating with those creeps wouldn't give us influence anyway. So, here we are. Anyway, yeah. Charlie Kirk would not denounce Tucker Carlson. and more of my disagreements with Charlie Cook, and the reality of Turning Point USA as a big tent that ultimately is going to have bad outcomes, bad consequences. All right, let's see. So I'll just add this. For years, decades really, I've been telling Israelis, don't count on those evangelicals. Beware. Beware. They're your friends right now, but they might not be in the future. And they can shift on a whim because their whole philosophy is based on whim. Everything they do is based on whim. They're religionists. They're faith-based religionists. They support Israel because they interpret some passage in some text, some ancient text, suggesting this is what they should do. That can shift tomorrow. Israel is much more isolated than it knows because it has a real potential of losing the right, the evangelical right, the religious right. By the way, one other thing that supposedly Charlie was contemplating in his final days was converting to Catholicism. Catholicism being the more intellectual side, if you will, of Christianity. Catholicism giving Christianity more structure and more of an intellectual bent. And so many of the leaders of the new right, are Catholics, and not born Catholics, but converts to Catholicism. It's really interesting. Really, really, really interesting.